Welcome home, Raiders. Tonight, WCS, AWC, OWL, HGC, and maybe more? I don't know. And if you know what those letters stand for, you are in the right place as Convert to Raid presents BattleNet Sports. Hi, everybody. This is Pat Crane, your host of this show. Welcome to it. And tonight, we actually do have quite a bit to talk about. We have Overwatch League playoffs to the finals, which are actually happening next weekend. We're going to talk AWC summer finals. Both of those we're going to talk with Thist about. No Jocelyn Moffitt this week, but HCT Oakland was this last weekend, and Tyree won, who placed 8th in BlizzCon 2014. So congrats on that and everything. And we'll catch up with Jocelyn next week. We'll talk more about how the meta is morphing and all of that kind of stuff, I'm sure. And we'll be talking a little bit of WCS, a little bit of an update because we had WCS Valencia. So if you're a StarCraft 2 fan, stick around. And HGC. That is, we're going to talk to Jules about that stuff as we're kind of in the middle of Phase 2, kind of in the heat of it. So let's get to the action. It's time to pick up on the Overwatch League playoff excitement. And, of course, joining us today, Thist. Hello, Thist.
Hello.
And you know Thist from Lagging Balls and the BattleNet News and other such places. And this was kind of... So the playoffs are a little bit unusual if you've been watching all season long because we have these... I think the term is match wins, right? So you have to win. You have to win the best. It's the best of 3 matches in a series, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we had these matches, and of course, you can only do. They're only doing two matchups for the week. And last week it was London Spitfire and the LA Gladiators, and the Fusion versus Boston, right?
Right. Yes.
So take us through. How did it go? How did it all play out?
Well, it was the first match was interesting on the Wednesday. There was Philly versus Boston, and we all assumed that Philadelphia would beat Boston just because after their crazy, amazing season 3 undefeatedness, they kind of tanked a lot.
Right.
So we kind of expect that to happen. But they put up a fight. It was 3-1 Philadelphia. So, they tried. Next up was London versus Gladiators. And, what we all assumed would happen did. Like, it was 3-0 Gladiators. And it was interesting because they brought in iRemix to tank. And it seemed like a risky move, but he really excelled, and they were able to pull off the Great Bamboozle, Pat. And
The Great Bamboozle.
And it's just the greatest, most cleverest, most amazing, most unique play that I've seen, and I think a lot of people would agree with me, in the entire Overwatch League so far.
Okay,
So
let's go through this Great Bamboozle since it was so great and so bamboozly. And they were playing in Kings Row.
Kings Row.
And you had everybody except for Surefour, right? Come out of the gate, and they went through the little place, and they went around the long way to come back on the high ground, kind of behind
the defense point. Yeah.
Right. And so they did kind of this long tour of those guys, and meanwhile, Surefour is just sitting there.
On Brigitte. So remember, like, the other team can see what the other team has.
Right.
So they're like, okay, they're playing a Brigitte meta. That makes sense. We're ready for this. But what they might not have noticed was that Brigitte was not with the rest of the team. Brigitte was sitting in the spawn room. So when the rest of the gladiators advanced from behind the defense point, which is completely, it's a good play in itself. Like, it's interesting, like it'll shake you up a little bit.
Sure.
But it kind of forced London to sort of break up their choke and sort of like turn around, like turn away from the like original attack choke.
Right. All of a sudden they have to turn around because they have some shields and absorbs and stuff like that they want to take from this big group that's behind them, essentially.
Right.
Okay.
So their defense is down on that other side. So that's when Surefour switches to Widowmaker, grapples up to the vantage point, and takes out two people immediately and damages a bunch of other people. And then that's when the rest of the gladiators advanced, and they took them out. Like, they didn't have their healer anymore because Surefour just picked off their mercy, and they took it. And it was just like, that's the kind of stuff that you would expect to see from like a professional team,
right.
With a coach, with like, people who like talk about strategies and plays and all the stuff. And like, no, it's not smart to like, think outside of the box all of the time.
Yep.
But in this case, like, it was, there must have been some risk with most of the team, like going around and trying to like pull the wool over their eyes and stuff like that. But it paid off. It was amazing. I was screaming. It was fantastic. And
there were a lot of people screaming about this, not just the commentators during the stream, but as far as what I could see, all of Twitch chat was just ablaze with capital letters and
oh yeah, IQ 900.
Yeah.
But I got to listen to, a few days later, the Gladiators released a video of the play with comms, and it was cool because like they're being cool about it, like they're talking to each other, they're communicating the whole time. Surefour doesn't say a thing. And then at the very end, when it's all worked out, then you hear him laughing. It was so good. It was so good. Oh, my goodness.
Unfortunately, that one play did not hold them for the entire match round.
No.
Right?
Well, it
didn't.
It didn't. But that's okay. Like, it doesn't matter. Like,
sure.
that was great. And so the next day, the Friday, it was Philly v. Boston only. And they played two games, and the first game was 1-3 Boston, and the second game was 3-1 Fusion. But since Boston had already lost, that means they were out.
Right.
So there was that, and like I was really proud of Boston actually. Like they fought really hard, and they really did bring it. And
well, and
like
it seemed like some of those issues that they had during stage 4 were kind of mitigated a little bit. I mean, it didn't seem like it was. Like the whole Brigitte meta, that whole meta just kind of shook them a little bit.
Totally.
Throughout stage 4. And it seems like over the break, they got a little bit of coaching or practice or whatever it was needed to kind of overcome some of those things at least. So
yeah, all they needed was more time, and it showed. So I hope that they continue that momentum into the second season.
Sure.
But good job, Boston.
Yep.
And then Saturday happened.
Right.
I don't really want to talk about that, but I guess I will. So it was London versus Gladiators in 2 games, and it was 3-0 both games for London.
Right.
So I don't get it, because like they were playing the way you would expect them to play on the Wednesday, but then on the Saturday it was like they went back in time. Right. And became the team that they were out of the gate at the beginning of the season.
Well, and that's good. I mean, they're pulling out all the stops right when they need to, and they needed to for this. So
they really did
to stay alive in the playoffs. And so we have Philly going on, we have London going on, and they are going to be starting up today, in a matter of hours from now, from the recording of this show, and Fusion will play New York Excelsior, and London Spitfire goes up against the Valiant of Los Angeles. And again, we're going to see, so today it's going to be a mixed bag. We're going to have all 4 teams going up against each other today. Tomorrow, Friday, I should say it that way. It's just the Spitfire versus the Valiant, and then Saturday it's just the Fusion versus the Excelsior. And then from there, we decide what the finals are, and then the finals are next week. And again, it's that same match win situation where you have to win 2 out of 3 matches, essentially, to be able to take it away. And that's going to be in Brooklyn.
Yes.
So
and I can't wait.
Right. Because you're going to that, right?
Yes.
Nice.
Nice.
And you're actually going to be going to the Excelsior stuff this weekend.
Today, yeah. There's
at the fan party thing.
Yes, with
fan
the 5
club.
deadly venoms.
Yes.
It's going to be great. I am fully expecting NYXL to take it all the way.
Sure.
I think everybody kind of assumes that. They were kind of in a weird sort of like slow decline near the end of the season. But honestly, I think it was just exhaustion in the fact that like they knew that they had it. So, you know.
But I do think that I do think that all of these teams that are still in it have a chance. I mean, that being said, I kind of agree with you that Excelsior seems like the strongest team here, but the Valiant are definitely very strong as well. They've proven themselves in Stage 4. And before that, in Stage 3, the Philly Fusion were really great.
Yeah,
and they've been looking good so far. And the Spitfire have been coming back.
I mean, they came back this weekend.
Right. Right.
So, like, I have no idea about that. Like, I'm pretty sure Fusion's going to be out. Like, they have to play NYXL a whole bunch this week, and I don't think it's going to turn out well for them. I fully expect the Valiant to be amazing. And London is a huge question mark for me. I don't know.
I just think that no team can take for granted the other team that they're playing this weekend, and the same would be true next weekend as well. Because I just think that, you know, right now it's whoever is on fire at the moment.
Exactly. So, it could be anything. Like I would bet on NYXL making it at least to the grand finals, but that's all I'm sure of.
Okay. All right.
And that's great.
Yeah, no, it's great. And so we'll see more of that happen this weekend, and we'll get back to everybody next week on what actually goes down and get you guys ready for the grand finale of Overwatch League Season 1. So there you go. Also, I wanted to talk to you about WoW Arena, or AWC as it's known. We talked last week about kind of setting up the summer finals, which means that EU versus NA in a lot of ways. Bring them all together and see who comes out on top there. How did that play out? I missed it. I was out of town, so I didn't get to watch a lot of video games.
I watched the whole 12 hours, Pat. It was great.
Right. Woo! And you said, and you let me know, and you said, "Oh my God, it was so fun." I'm like, "Great, awesome, cool." So I can't wait to hear about it. So tell me all the deets, please.
It was great. So it was the summer finals in Katowice, Poland.
Yep.
It was amazing. The stage there is so vast and bright and shiny, and like the floor is reflective. Like, this doesn't really matter, but like I was really impressed. But it was so good. Let's see. So the casters were Venruki, Super T, Zico, Rich Campbell, and Joe Fernandez. They were amazing. They really pulled it off. And like they were just like so hype the whole time that it was like completely infectious. So Ascendant, the team Ascendant was there, but they were under the name Making a Movie.
Why did they change names? Do we know exactly?
I put it to Reddit because I couldn't figure it out. So this isn't confirmed, but somebody said it appears that they're no longer representing Ascendant. Ville and Maro were formerly on a team called Making a Movie. Okay. So that's why we assume that they defaulted to that instead.
Sure. Okay.
So that's, but it was very confusing because I don't know if anybody announced it, but it's just like, here's all your teams. And I'm like, cool. What is Making a Movie?
Right.
Who is that?
Right.
What? And then I was like, okay, so they've got all the same players as Ascendant, so I'm kind of assuming it's that. Anyway, so the first day, North America got their butt handed to them.
Yes.
We almost completely dropped out of this whole thing.
Yep.
Luckily, the Move and Super Frogs made it to the lower bracket, but it wasn't embarrassing. And it wasn't entirely surprising, but it was, but I didn't want it to happen.
Right, right. No, I gotcha. Yeah, it was a little upsetting, right? Because you had XRB to the Moon just kick it to the Move. You had Method Black kick it to Super Rejects. You had the Super Frogs out to Tempo Storm. And so then what do you do?
Yeah. So you pray. You pray and you pray to the esport gods.
Sure.
So the next day, the Sunday, the Championship Sunday, I actually get to say that because, I've never watched a Championship Sunday before. So it looked bad because, of course, NA had to face each other in the lower bracket, and whoever won would kick the other out.
Yeah.
So that was tough. I was rooting for the Super Frogs, and they did manage to win over the Move 3-1. So then the Super Frogs went on to play XRB to the Moon, and I think these matches in particular, and I'm not just saying this because I'm biased because I like the team the best. These matches in particular were incredible. They were just like the matches were like, I don't know how to describe it other than like meaty. I think you used that word recently, but it was just like it wasn't like, if they were over quickly, it wasn't just like, oh. Okay.
There was a lot of content in these matches to be able to kind of analyze and be able to kind of look at and say, wow.
And it was exciting, like these teams were very evenly matched, and they fought like each side were just anyway. So during one game, the dampening went to 51%.
Whoa.
And I think that's close to the record. I think the record, I'm not sure, but I think I heard somebody say the record was like 52 or 53% or something like that. It was just amazing. Anyway, so eventually XRB took the series 3-1.
Okay.
And then NA was out. We were out. So that's fine. Yep. But, Super Frogs played really, really well. They represented North America really, really well. And I'm really proud of them. So it came down to XRB to the Moon and Method Black. So, like, these guys have been fighting for like the past 2 months.
Yep.
And it was EU versus EU in EU. And, like, the winners share like $50,000 on the line. It's the guaranteed spot to BlizzCon. And so it was the best of 7. And thankfully, XRB and Method Black tied 3 out of 3 out of the 6 games. So they took it to a 7th game. And that was so exciting. I love when that happens.
Yeah.
And the 7th game, Method Black just sort of eliminated XRB really quickly. And we're all like, oh, all right, I guess it's over. Good job. So, yeah, it was an exciting finals just because
it was an exciting build up with kind of a very very fast ending.
Lots of things. Yeah, exactly.
And then it was over. And
then it was over.
Right. Yep.
But overall, Pat, for somebody who like default roots for NA, it was exciting because the first day we're just like watching our teams drop out and we only have 2 chances left. And then the next day, like they're going head to head and one of them can stay and one of them has to go. And it was harrowing. And then, right after that, watching the Super Frogs like compete for like the 2nd place, and they competed so hard and everything was just so uncertain, and it was just, and then, they dropped out and that was sad, but then it was like EU versus EU, like who's better, and then it came down to the 7th game. Like it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was great.
I always like that when it comes down to like the last possible game and you're pitted toe to toe and you're just really have to figure it out, and apparently Method Black just figured it out really fast.
They did.
So
it was good.
There we go. So when does AWC pick up again? It picks up in September, right?
Yes, September 14th, and that's a Friday. That's the beginning of the Fall EU Cup, so like EU Cup 1. And so somebody in my Discord noted that they've changed the sort of like the way that they're broadcasting this for Fall. Okay. So EU is on the Friday, NA is on Saturday, and Championships on Sunday every other week instead of doing NA EU alternating every week.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so it'll just kind of be like that instead. I mean, it's not a huge change or anything like that, but I don't know.
It gives you a little bit. It's kind of not necessarily a cup weekend. It's like a couple of weekends or whatever, right? So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, when it comes time for the next AWC, we will talk to you again. Well, actually, we'll talk to you next week anyway because of Overwatch League. But Thist, thank you so much. Make sure to check out Thist on Lagging Balls, Battle.net News, and wherever, like streaming. You also stream.
I stream.
Thist03 on Twitch.
That's me.
So there you go. Thanks, Thist.
Thanks, Pat.
We are in the thick of things for HGC. We are in the middle of phase 2. And of course, Jules Scott is here. You know her from Nerf This and Torn Think Tank and all sorts of other things. Hello, Jules.
Hello. More HGC news. I'm excited.
Yeah. Now we kind of know how things are panning out for teams. Now that we're past the first couple of weeks, we have the first few games under our belt. What was it like this last weekend?
So we've got some more definitive standings right now, which is really cool to see. We know that Tempo Storm and Team Dignitas are going to the Western Clash, which is in about a month-ish, like 3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
They are both teams sitting undefeated at 5-0. And then we kind of know that LFM Esports and No Tomorrow are not going to have a chance to get there for NA.
No.
Granite Gaming and Zealots not going to get a chance to get there for EU. So this is what we know. Then the rest of it is now still really up for grabs. Lots of things that we need to look for. And I will. So let's start. We should start with EU, right?
Okay,
we should kind of go from there. Sure. Top 4 is now Dignitas, Method, Team Liquid, and Leftovers, which is a very interesting thing.
Well, but the drop off is real when you get to that 4th place. When the Leftovers are there, they do kind of feel left over. Because they're sitting at 2-2, and the next one up is Team Liquid, and those guys are 4-1. So it's kind of a little bit of a difference there between 3rd and 4th place. So,
but you notice who I did not mention, who we talk about every time because you bring it up. It's usually the top 3: Dignitas, Method, and Fnatic. Fnatic is sitting at 5th place with a 1-3 record because they lost 3-2 against Leftovers last week.
Right, and so this is very, very interesting. I'm kind of intrigued by this. I'm like, Fnatic is kind of one of those teams that you look at and you go, these guys are they're always in the top or in the top few, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you sat around this time last year and Fnatic was undefeated. You couldn't beat that team.
Right.
Now, with a 1-3 record, they've fallen quite a bit and they've made some roster changes, of course, but they are not the same team that they were back a year ago. And it is showing. It's very strange to say that the top 4 does not include Fnatic in it because it's been a long time since that's been said. The other part that I should talk about in terms of EU, since we're still there, is talking about Zealots. And Zealots, we're leading up to the second Western Clash of 2018, but the one that happened in February-ish, of 2018. I'm trying to remember when.
Right.
Zealots, they were in the finals up against Dignitas.
Mm-hmm.
And almost won. They took them to 6 games. Now Zealots sits at a 0-5 record. And it's really kind of hard to see that because they were so impressive to watch at the Western Clash and people had some really high expectations of this team.
I'm just kind of curious if you know or if you've really looked at the schedules breakdowns as far as EU goes to see who they've been up against, because I mean, sometimes the schedule is a little bit unfavorable, right? And it can be, kind of like one of those things, although we are halfway through. So basically they've played most everybody on the roster. So I don't know.
It's not been like that they've gotten a raw deal by having to play by only the top 4 teams.
Right.
They've been playing teams that are matched with them and thinking of them as a top 4 team just, 5 months ago,
right,
when in that way. So there's actually a really good article in Then Global that was written by Tim Rizzo, and he speaks especially to this whole topic of Zealots, and they interview Shad, who is their support player, who he talks pretty frankly about the things that have changed with the team and what they're trying to work on. And if you're not following Tim Rizzo on Twitter, you should, if you're an HGC fan, because he really does dig into the really good stuff. So I found that, wanted to share that with you guys for this week. And then EU, we're looking pretty good in terms of knowing Dignitas, Method most likely, and Liquid is right up there. And then if there's a shake up, you're probably going to see some of it this weekend.
Sure.
I would think.
Right.
So that's EU. So let's just swing the hammer over to NA, shall we?
Just swing it on over. Yep.
Let's swing it on over.
Yep.
Top 5 is Tempo Storm, Heroes Hearth, eSports, Endemic, Team Freedom, and Team Octalysis. This is an interesting change. This week, Tempo Storm 3-0'd Team Freedom, putting them down to 4th place. And Tempo is still playing with an unofficial, like they're playing with a sub. We think that he's going to be their 5th, but we don't know yet. And I don't know when it's going to get announced because they keep saying, we'll let you know. So we haven't heard about that. But Endemic, because they took a 3-2 win over Team Octalysis, they knocked them down to the 5th place spot. Octalysis is formerly Team 12.
Right.
And they were sitting upwards of 3rd spot for most of Phase 1. So seeing them in 5th place at a 2-3 record is pretty surprising.
Right. Although it is really tight between 3rd and 5th place. I mean, it's just a match, so it's not like it's a huge gap or anything like that. So
yeah, and I'm going to give you a little insider information because
yeah, do it.
From my experience of working now with Femfrosty, which is an open division team, the mental state of your players when they're winning and when they're losing is more, we know that to be true. We've all played on competitive type of things, most of us, in, the past where we've competed against other people to get rankings.
Sure.
Mental mindset is not to be discounted, for real.
Oh, yeah.
Like sitting at 5th place for Team Octalysis right now, they're going to have to go for the deep kind of like, what do we have in us to pull us back out? What are we made of?
Right.
Because they're not used to being there.
Right.
They're
and
not.
now it's kind of like a, hey, let's get up off our butts and make something of this and do, pull out all the stops and see what's going on. So
yeah. Or like, how much more are we going to practice? What are we going to change?
Right.
Is there a blame game going on? Are there interpersonal issues between the players? You don't know that, obviously, because they're not going to tell you.
Sure.
But you can probably guess. And it's going to be, what do you do to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and really get back into what you could accomplish as a team before?
Right.
So yeah, this week is going to be interesting. I will give you some games of what you should be watching.
I like it when you do this. All right. So what do we got for this weekend? What are the big games?
On Friday, you're going to watch NA Endemic versus Heroes Hearth. That's number 3 versus number 2-ish. Heroes Hearth is sitting at number 2, but they've played only 4 games, not 5.
Okay.
And they're still undefeated. So that's why I say 2-ish.
Sure.
EU's games on Friday are pretty run-of-the-mill. Definitely watch, but not as exciting. But on Saturday, buckle in on Saturday, kids, because on EU side, it's Method versus Leftovers and Fnatic versus Dignitas. These could be very, very interesting and game-changing matches. But the premier match of the weekend that I think is going to be there is NA's Heroes Hearth versus Tempo Storm, which is also on Saturday. Right now, those two teams are undefeated. Somebody's going to get a defeat this weekend.
Somebody's going to lose.
Somebody's going to lose, and it's not going to be Heroes Hearth. I'll just say that.
Tempo Storm is playing at that type of level right now. That's what you're saying. Or at least better than that.
Tempo Storm is playing very, very well. I'm going to it's going to be a tough match, and I'm going to root for Heroes Hearth because I think they've still got the goods, and Tempo Storm is still working on adjusting to their sub, their new player, who is probably going to be their new player by this weekend. Let's hope.
Sure.
So my vote's going to go for Heroes Hearth, but it's probably going to go to a game 5.
Oh.
Is my guess.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. And then in a couple of weeks, a few weeks, we have Western Clash, and then we have all the clashes again. Right. So
you got Western Clash on August 10th. So we've got 2 more weeks this week and next week of regular season. Western Clash on the 10th, and then Eastern Clash is coming up on the 17th. And then we pick up regular season on August 20th. So we're like, there's not going to be a whole lot of breaks in there.
Nope. And so we will check back next week with you about all things HGC. Make sure to follow Jules and go to all the shows that she's on and all of that kind of good stuff. Jules Scott, thank you very much. Let's talk a little bit of WCS Valencia. So that was over this last weekend, and there was actually a really good turnout for the round of 16. You had people like Cyril and Scarlett and Rainer, the new kid in town, Special and Neeb and others, Clem, Showtime, all these guys. They were all in it to win it, so to speak. And let's check out how they did. Now, Cyril and Scarlett faced off in the round of 16, and Scarlett was the only one to really slow Cyril down. Cyril's been very hot this entire season, so it's no wonder that Cyril actually won WCS Valencia. And then it was Haz finishing second, and then Hero Marine and Showtime kind of rounding out the top four there. But there were some very interesting matches here. A lot of 3-2s, a lot of kind of these bigger matches where there was more at stake, especially at the end. Where Cyril versus Scarlett was a great one with 3-2 finish there. Neeb versus Showtime. Showtime beat Neeb 3-2, which was kind of cool. I mean, Neeb's been pretty hot. Neeb was definitely hot last year. But Showtime and Neeb, very, very good players. That's the way it goes. And the new kid in town, Rainer, he had a bit of bad luck because he ran into Cyril in the quarterfinals and just kind of got wiped out 3-0. But very good showing from this 16-year-old guy that is finally accumulating WCS points in hopes for that BlizzCon seat this year. We will see if that happens. But I guess, so overall, very good showing. Some really cool games where there was a lot of 3-2 finishes. And the next big WCS event is in Montreal in September. I think that's September 9th. So we will check in as we go through and see how we're doing as far as point standings, especially as we approach the end of the year, to see how it'll end up for those guys pushing for those BlizzCon seats. Because with Cyril winning all of these WCS events, it's going to be a points race. It really is. So we will talk about this more as we go through. And again, the next big event, WCS Montreal. And that's going to do it for this episode of BattleNet Sports. I want to thank our contributors, Jules and Thist, and special thanks to Alessander as well for WCS information and insights. Always a pleasure. And I also want to thank you guys for stopping by. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. And if you want to catch all the stuff that we're doing over at CTR, make sure to go to converttoraid.com. That's where we have our videos, our audios, all of the different shows under the Convert to Raid podcast network, which includes all the shows from our regular contributors here and at BattleNet News. So there. And if you guys want to talk to us, make sure to follow us on social media at Convert to Raid, pretty much everywhere. And I want to thank you guys for stopping by, and we will see you next time. Until then, bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.